Welcome everyone. My name is Lizzie, and I am your friendly and local biology major / cephalopod enthusiast. On today's episode of Why Does That Animal Do That? Why does that animal do that? We will be taking a deep dive into the foraging techniques of a very cute and clever octopus. The name? Octopus Insularis. Our purpose? To identify the varying foraging techniques of octopi in a shallow water reef system. Here we go.
Here is our star player, Octopus Insularis. Found in the warm, shallow waters of the Brazilian coast, Insularis lives in a shallow reef environment that is a host of a variety of different species of prey. Crustaceans, bivalves, and gastropods are the main diet of this octopus. This information led biologists to pose a question for this shy, medium-sized octopus species. Does an octopus hunt each prey item using the same foraging technique? And how does octopus foraging behavior change to fit the environment? To answer this question, the biologists measured and recorded the frequencies of 3 identifiable foraging behaviors. Let's take a look. First off, we have the poke, where an octopus will swim along a sandy substrate and poke around the sand for small prey items, detritus, and other things that can be captured easily with a tentacle grab. Added fun fact, octopuses can taste with their tentacles. Next off, we have the crawl, where an octopus, usually on the larger size, will crawl around the sea floor using its tentacles, sort of like legs. This behavior has to do with the searching for prey items. And finally, we have web over, which involves swimming over a prey and enveloping it within its web, pushing its prey deeper into its mouth, or in this case, under a rock. And several days of study and scuba diving later, the biologists had enough data to give us a handy foraging behavior frequency chart. Here we have the results of the foraging study. Let's break it down a little bit. I highlighted the 3 foraging techniques and the environment which they were most frequently observed. We can see that the crawl behavior was most prevalent in the deep reef environment. We see that the poke behavior is most prevalent on the sandy bedrock, and the web over behavior was most prevalent in the rock and rubble environment. To get a better understanding of these behavioral differences, we will go through each behavior, its frequency, and the probable cause behind it. For crawling behavior, 41% of all crawl observations were found in larger octopuses, and 75% on environments of bedrock without sand. In contrast, poke behavior was most frequent in small octopuses, making up 45% of all poke observations, 52% on bedrock with sand. And finally, 64% of web over observations occurred with larger prey items caught by large octopi, with 0 observations in small individuals and primarily occurring in the rock and rubble environment. After taking a look at these results, we can begin to answer the why. Why does the octopus choose a foraging technique? And what do we know about foraging in animals that can answer this question? Let's take a look. Crawling behavior was observed mostly in large octopi, who by nature prefer the deep reef environment. Smaller octopi prefer to swim in their more shallow waters, darting between safe location to safe location and only coming out to feed. Large octopi don't have to worry as much about predation risk as smaller individuals, and crawling behavior takes a lot of energy, but it does allow a large octopus to remain close to the ground as it looks for a shelter to hide between crawls. Smaller octopi have a lot more risk involved when it comes to moving and searching, so it's a good idea to reduce predation risk and keep the crawling to the big dogs. Poking behavior was most observed in the smaller octopi, who remained closer to shore and in shallower waters. This feeding technique costs relatively low amounts of energy for the little guys, as they act as sort of a filter feeder throughout the sandy bedrock. This technique does not minimize predation, but it does maximize the ratio of energy spent versus energy points gained as minimal swimming takes place to feed. Smaller octopi can sustain themselves on this type of feeding, but larger octopi need more substance at each mealtime. Lastly, web over. This behavior is the most exciting behavior, in my opinion. It involves a struggle, it involves a fight, and there will be only one winner who gets dinner. Web over was used by large octopi to hunt large prey items. Look back to the crab and the octopus. There is a lot of fight still in that crab as our octopus tries to eat it. Large octopi, who we know now need more food each mealtime, can hunt using this energy-costly strategy because the payoff is so large. Smaller octopi cannot risk such a fight and know that their status as predator can easily be overturned. So, what did we learn today? We learned that foraging technique largely depends on the size of the octopus and the size of the prey. Each technique has a time and a place, and octopi, especially Octopus Insularis, takes all of this into account before going on the hunt. This study of Insularis can be applied to octopus species behavior in general. Octopi rely heavily on shelter to survive. Environment matters. Reef is better to hide than the open ocean. Octopus of different size will forage using different techniques to maximize their success in foraging and therefore their fitness. What may seem like random behaviors are actually very complex, but can be understood. Simply fascinating. And thank you for joining in on this titillating premiere episode of Why Does That Animal Do That? See you all next time. Biologist Lizzie, signing off.